Hello folks, this is Gabriel ILiadis with songwriterandproducer.com, and today I will show you how to infuse a live feel into your song, into your mix, into your sound. I will concentrate on 3 sounds that I have used in this case. This is a cover of a different band I have produced fully and arranged. The incredible Holly J is singing it. So these are the 3 sounds we'll talk about today. Let's start with listening to the whole thing, how it starts. And the goal here is to convince the audience, to convince the people that are listening to your song that the work has been performed in a live audience.
For a while, I'm wide-eyed, I'm so damn caught in the middle. I've excused you for a while, I'm wide-eyed, and I'm so damn caught in the middle. If
So, what do we have here? We have 2 crowd sounds, these 2, and a clap sound. Let's start with examining the first sound, this one. So I'll solo this. So as you see, this is a sound that has a keyboard in it and then some crowds, and it has a lot of heavy automation. That's why you saw it go up and down, heard it. Let's listen to the second sound here. A lot of heavy automation also. So this sound has a little bit of a tempo in it, if you notice. Bum, 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 okay? And then even more clear of a tempo here with the claps. So of course, one of the things I had to do was to make the claps hit at the right beat, and later we'll talk about how that was a challenge so that they fit on the snare. So let's take the first sound. What happens here? We have an imaging plugin. Imaging, extremely important. Placement of sound, very important to me, very important to everybody who's serious about mixing, about songwriting, or rather producing songs. This is a plugin that I use, I like. You don't have to have the same plugins. You could just use the panning, stock panning tool that this particular DAW comes with. You don't have to use this DAW. Knowing your DAW is more important. Picking the DAW that you are comfortable with is fine. Panning, and then there's some stock plugins that DAWs come with. You can use those. So what do we have here? Imaging. Let's listen to this, bypassing the imaging plugin. With, without, with, without. So it makes the sound more realistic, more wide. I have upped the width a little, some rotation coming from the left. There's a reason I did that. Whenever I rotate sounds, I do it because I can hear that particular sound better. It's heard placed in a more tucked in way, in a way that what the sound is trying to do is actually accomplished, because we can hear the sound and it's not clashing or canceling itself because it's clashing with other similar sounds possibly. The other big thing here is the input mode is into mid-side instead of left-right. Very important. This is a science in itself. Extremely complicated matter here. Left-right versus mid-side tracking. Mid-side, sometimes the selection of mid-side solves a lot of things, a lot of placement problems for me. I use it a lot. I try it to see what it does to the sound. Half the times it doesn't work, half the times it does. Depends what you do. Also the polarity, I change the polarity with the other two sounds. In this case, I have not for this, but that's all I did with this sound. Let's go to the second sound, see what I did here. 3 plugins here. Well, let's hear the sound without the plugins first. And then with the plugins. Without. A lot more narrow of a sound. This to me sounds like I'm in the stadium. What happened? What did I do? So this is an EQ plugin. There are a ton of them out there, free or not. I use this. I like it for many reasons. What I did, one of the reasons I like this plugin is because it lets me visually see where the fat part of a given sound is, where the energy of the sound is. So in this particular case, see, from maybe 300 to 5K, call it 500 to 5K, that's where everything is happening here. So I upped to accentuate, to emphasize the fat part of the sound. So I upped there, and then I tucked in, the tuck-in effect as I call it, which basically is treating the lows and the highs. So I lose a lot of the energy here and here so that I accentuate again the mid part of or section of the sound. Let's hear how it sounds without. With. Big difference to me. Without. When I turn it on, I'm closer to the audience. Far. Close. Of course, one of the reasons it sounds like I'm close is because I'm accentuating the fatness, but I also hear some width effect happening there. So now, what else am I doing? Ducking. Another video probably about ducking. Another very popular technique. I use it almost, not always, but very, very often. I'm not going to go into how ducking works, but very quickly, I'm trying to suppress this sound based upon another sound. And in this case, bus 30 is where I have all my vocals. So when the singer sings, this sound, the crowd, is suppressed at a given rate. How fast, how much is controlled by these controls here. Let's hear it when the singer sings. This is what's showing us by how many dBs the sound is suppressed, basically. And when the singer's not singing, crowd can be heard more. As you probably can tell, the singer and the crowd, from a frequency spectrum perspective, very, very close, mid-frequencies. And we don't want it to clash. So one of the reasons why I'm using this. Plus, you know, we want to hear the singer more than anybody else. The third thing I'm doing on this is imaging. I have turned the polarity. I have played with the polarity down here. I have left-right input mode, no mid-side. And I have played with the asymmetry and some of the width. So without. With. Let's hear this where the singer is not singing. Without. With. So one of the things that I'm hearing is that, and that's why we see this coming outside of the spectrum here, a lot more emphasis on the left side at this particular angle. And that makes a lot of sense. So This is how you play with the symmetry. And that's why we hear a lot of this happening on the left side. So this is off now. When I turn it on, you'll hear more, if you're using headphones, more crowd coming on your left side. See that? Okay, so then the claps are not happening here. I have this is why it's gray. I have it muted, but they start here at the yellow. Let's hear the claps by themselves. Turn all plug-in treatment off. On. Sounds like a stadium to me when I turn them on. What did I do? EQing, very similar treatment as the crowd. The fat part of this sound is around here. Wider than the crowd. We go down to 200 in this case. Before we were closer to 500. Anyway, so very similar though. 200 to 5K, accentuating and then tucking in the left and the right for lows and highs. Now, this sound is richer. When I turn this off, without the tuck-in and the accentuation in the mid-range, when I turn it off, I bypass it, we hear a more rich sound, a richer sound. Maybe this would be a better choice if we had less happening in the song. This song has a ton of things happening. I'm going to make a lot of tutorials showing you tricks and tips and techniques, mixing techniques, etc. The point is that placing sounds, when you have especially a lot happening, becomes more of a challenge. Although bypassed, it sounds more like a complicated sound, that is actually working against us. Second thing I'm doing, placing, imaging, mid-side again, but with a different polarity change here. Further back, closer. To me, when I turn this on, the further back becomes closer, so the clapping is coming closer, and also it's happening more at the top. It's coming like at the top of my head if you're wearing headphones. I feel like the width is wider. Third thing I'm doing, very, very slight compression. The fourth thing, we talked about ducking again against bus 30, which is the vocals. And you see the reduction here. Now, let's talk about automation. In this case, volume automation. A lot of things happening here. How I make these decisions depend a lot on taste, on choice, art. Everything's subjective here. But there are some principles, like with everything in music, there are principles, and then you do your own thing, you experiment. One of the principles is that, look what's happening here. I take the crowd completely off, and even here with the claps, take them totally off. Let's see what happens here. Why did I do that? Okay, so we have a fill-in, a break in the drums, and a sweep that prepares the listener for an emphatic point into the song, and in this case, a chorus. So because the sweep and the fill-in and that preparation, I wanted to go from down up very quickly, like the sweep itself. I want that to be as pronounced as possible. And one of the best ways to do that is to take other sounds completely off so that that sweep, that fill-in are heard more than before. Okay, again. And I probably did this with other sounds, if I go down, which of course are not related to this tutorial, but let's see what happened with the claps. What do I have here? So what happened here was I have these very intense drums that I have tucked in all the way to the right, incredibly difficult to place those. And I want them to be heard, so I'm taking other sounds out, like for example, the claps. Here on the right side, you hear the drums. And now the fill-in, in a way, guitar happening, getting ready for... So every time the drums come in, this is lowered. Another incredible challenge with the claps was to place them correctly on top of the snares. At least two snares are happening here that I'll talk about those in other tutorials. There's probably at least an hour of a tutorial that needs to take place here with respect to how I treated the snares. But on top of a very calculated snare or two, which is changing pitch depending on the chords, we have claps. The audience is producing those claps. They have to fit in, they happen. Otherwise, we do not accomplish our goal of convincing the listener that this performance took place in front of an audience. So placement, though, becomes more of a challenge because more is happening. The more that's happening, the more difficult for the sound to continue sounding sweet, round, warm, pleasant. Let's see how those claps fall exactly on the beat of the snare. Without. With. So, let's see how this would sound, this song, without the crowd and the claps. Let's go here. Okay, so this sounds like it was done in the studio. So with. Without. With. And finally, the final thing I want to show you is how this ends, because I love what's happening around here when the song is kind of fading out, but the crowd becomes more pronounced because everything else is fading out. The feel of the live performance continues. Right here. And I probably would have it more pronounced. What I would do would be, because we have a change here, it would be like something like this. You probably can tell why, but here's what I'm going to do. Do it right in front of you, editing. Perfect. This is how you would add a live feel to your song, your sound, your mix. And this was a tutorial by Gabriel ILiadis with songwriterandproducer.com.